Our next speaker is Irénée Robin, co-founder and managing partner at VVR Medical. But before creating VVR, Irénée was the chief marketing officer and head of international business at Shanghai New Summit Biopharma, and before that, senior representative of Bio, successfully launching the Bio Convention in China 2021. Irénée is an expert in China market entry for healthcare innovation, which means regulatory. And since Karen just spoke about facing challenges, regulatory is often seen as a challenge. So Irénée, bring us your insights.
Thank you very much, Caroline, and thank you, Karen, for the introduction. Let me share my screen now. Can you see it in presentation mode? All right. So, as we are a little bit behind schedule, I'm going to probably go a little bit faster than I thought, but it's all right. And I will assume some of you who were at the webinar last year probably remember me. I had a presentation, it was around the same time, end of June last year. I had a general presentation about the regulatory context. Here today, I will not go back into this. I will assume everybody knows at least the basics of the regulatory in China when it comes to diagnostic products. And I will go strictly into what's new in 2025, because between June last year and now, there indeed have been some changes, some of them quite major, even though they are still in the making. So, very simply put, we are going to talk about 3 points. There is an upcoming MD/IVD administration law. Law, not as in law, not regulation anymore. It goes one step up. And as we will see, this new law brings in a bunch of new measures, and some of which are going to change and reshape the industry. Some of them are world's first, nothing short of revolutionary. I'm going to go into this a little bit later. I would like to insist, though, that it's an upcoming text. It has been submitted to comments of the industry in September 2024. It is now supposedly in the process of being vetted and passed as an official law and official bill, but it has not come to force yet. We are going to spend 1 minute, not more, on the most recent IVD-related measures and give you a very quick conclusion slide. But the bulk of my presentation will be about the upcoming medical device and IVD law, because as you know, at least for some of them, for those of you who were with us last year, that MD and IVD are in China managed virtually under the same regulations. I would like to start with a Chinese idiom, which happens to be interesting because it's exactly the same translation in English and in Chinese. You can see kill two birds with one stone. You can see one stone, two birds here. So I wanted to show you this because the upcoming law actually is going to kill 4 birds with one stone. Chinese legislator always likes to do this. Whenever they try to tackle an issue, they don't want to tackle only one issue. It's at least 2 and sometimes 3 and sometimes 4. And this time it's 4. This law is to that extent very well thought, because it actually comes at the intersection of 4 very important factors that China wants to continue improving or wants to put in place in the coming years. The first one, foster innovation and performance. You've got certain past texts, 2020, 22, and 23, which are already oriented around this. The second one would be a company localization. And when I say a company localization, you really need to understand that this is an irreversible trend. Personally, I think that By 2030, a vast majority of medical device and in diagnostic products used in China will be China-made, China manufactured, or China assembled. And by 2035, so 10 years from now, we are going to go far beyond 90%. Even the most complex medical device or diagnostic products now are either already localized in terms of assembly and manufacturing or on the way of doing so. If a Da Vinci surgical robot is made in China, then everything can be made in China in the medical industry. The third one was to improve the industry practices, and we will see a carrot and stick approach here in the new law, and increasing NMPA efficiency. There have been complaints throughout. There is always complaints about regulatory efficiency. Then we will see that the law actually includes in many of its articles hard deadlines for the NMPA, which are shortened. And it comes with a very interesting measure is that the NMPA, as we will see, has more freedom to organize their own activity as they please, which, given where NMPA comes from, and I'm referring obviously to 2007, it was not a given, giving this regulatory body more freedom to operate. So the upcoming law is at the intersection of those four birds that we want to kill in one stone. So as you can see, August submit for opinion, 1 month of opinion collection, 20 again in Chinese, and we expect it to come during the second half of the year. Obviously, it's 1st of July, it hasn't passed yet, so I'm not taking much risk here. I was expecting it earlier than that. I do not know why it's not in force yet, but it's probably will be soon. So usually when I present this, I have 60 to 80 minutes to do so. So this is not going to be the case today. I go almost article by article when I present it extensively. Here, I'm going to give you, for each of those 4 circles, I'm going to give you the top 3 measures. So the key measures in foster innovation and performance are threefold. First, and when I say devices here, you can understand devices and diagnostics again. It's the same, essentially the same management system. First of all, Article 6 and Article 52, innovative devices are much more recognized. There are more precise pathways when you are innovative, and being innovative, according to NMPA definition, is not that complicated. It's not that hard. And being innovative is very interesting. For instance, if you need to perform clinical validation of your new diagnostic in China, or because you are bringing a new modality that requires clinical validation, if you are recognized as an innovative device, the NMPA will put together a team for you to pre-validate your clinical program. So as soon as they have pre-validated your clinical program, if your results are good, you will have your market authorization. Obviously, many other advantages to being innovative. You remember Karen mentioning some of them were innovative among the market authorizations last year. Big advantages, special pricing, special reimbursement, access to procurement, which is much better, stronger and stronger recognition of innovation, and obviously international manufacturers are still a powerhouse when it comes to innovation. So again, whenever you want to come to China on a new product, think about innovative status. It's not that complicated to obtain, even for foreigners. Second one, classification in line with overseas status. It's interesting for frontier products. In the diagnostic sector, you're not quite submitted to this or subjected to this as much as in the medical device sector, but in the medical device sector, some products are, frontier. Are they a medical device? Are they just a device? Are they or is the product more akin to a medicine, to a drug? This is always a complicated. Here we have a convergence of the definition, and for those of you who come from Europe, You will know that the diagnostics and medical device definition now in Chinese law is 99.9% identical to what we have in Europe for MDR and IVDR. So this convergence, which probably is due to the presence and the work that's being done within the ICH, of which China is a member, as you know, is bearing fruit progressively. And HDT, hospital developed test, which Karen mentioned LDT. LDT is a specific pathway, as you know, for laboratory developed tests, to which is conceptually akin to what we have in the US for CLIA via CLIA labs. However, we have also HDT, hospital developed tests, whereby you can partner with the hospital and have the hospital, let's say, carry your product and bring it to the clinic in their own, let's say, area. And if you do so, you do not even need to go through an MPF for registration. And if you select a hospital which is at the center of the province, which actually may also collect samples from other hospitals around, as it happens more than often. For example, Karen mentioned pathology. Not every hospital has a fully fledged pathology lab. Sometimes good pathology labs actually gather samples from hospitals around, which means that you have let's say, a patient pool which can be as big as Belgium or even the Netherlands, even if you're only in one province. So it becomes an interesting economic equation if you don't need to register. This was present in State Decree 739 in 2021. It's taken back into the law with absolutely no change. So also something to explore if you have a test and a diagnostic product that requires strong hospital involvement. Second, accompany medical device and IVD industry localization, the revolution, transferable MA certificates. There is one article, Article 58 in this new law, that says in 3 lines, if you have a market authorization in China of an MD or an IVD, you can transfer it to another company, provided that company fulfills the condition of a market authorization holder. 3 lines. We don't know how they're going to do it. We don't know what will be the conditions. We don't know the process of transferring the market authorization from one company to the other, but China is ready to offer this. This has immense consequences. It means that, for example, you could give away your old products to another company for a fee, for a licensing fee. You could give them, for example, to a Chinese company who's going to take your old products, so to speak, or museum products, to produce them in areas in China where cost of labor, cost of utilities, etc., is as low as possible. That will bring affordability for everyone with very basic diagnostic products. But then if you do so, you actually get a licensing fee that could be an upfront plus royalties, etc. And with that money, you can reinvest into innovation and bring in your new product, because your let's say older products help financing all this. So that's just one example of how this measure could be used. There are plenty of others, but simply put, market authorization becomes an asset. It becomes an asset in your balance sheet. It can be traded, it can be transferred. When this comes to force, I think it's going to be funny to see how it's going to work, but this is going to be a major change. Second one, you probably have seen and you probably have heard from your Chinese counterparts and even from the people you work with on the Chinese territory, how there is difference in pace of innovation between, let's say, the West in general and China. And you see how the Chinese companies often, launch a product and 1 year and a half later, add new references on the certificate and maybe a second generation, etc., etc. A lot of incremental innovation, adding here a bigger screen or a touch screen, adding a new function, data transfer, digital capabilities, etc. All this incremental quick innovation is now reflected in the law. And there is an article that says, can't remember the number, I'm sorry, but that says manufacturers are expected to bring in continuous innovation. You're not obliged, you are expected, obviously, but are expected to bring in continuous innovation. I sense a little bit from the regulator and from the Chinese state being a little bit fed up of being stuck with foreign products that have, let's say, an ongoing market and a stable market, but do not bring really anything new on the table here from 1 year to the other. They want progressively to give incentives and to give even also a little bit of pressure to innovators, so that they actually innovate and bring in new products on a regular basis. As a complement to that, and this is very important for localization, the freedom to outsource. Essentially, in the diagnostics area, when this law passes, you can virtually outsource your manufacturing in China, for example, to a CMO or CDMO, almost without constraints. The only devices that are banned from outsourcing are implantable high-risk devices. Of course, in diagnostics, we seldom have this. Well, you might have, for example, intracranial pressure monitors, but they are not implantable. They are actually, because it's temporary, they are not meant to stay in your brain, for instance, the sensors, I mean. So even this, you could outsource manufacturing. And if you outsource manufacturing, there are plenty of excellent CDMOs which are going to also take care of your IP in a proper manner. And you're going to be able to enforce the contract and vet them well and choose them well. So when it comes to localization, think of this option. It's easier than it has ever been. When it comes to improving industry practice, well, we enter into the system of market authorization holder, Article 7, very early in the law, joint and several responsibility. As a Western or foreign innovator present on the Chinese market, you have the manufacturer responsibility. You also have what is called, as of today, a regulatory agent, in China, that interacts with the NMPA and follows on your dossier on your behalf. And you have probably either your own team or one or several distributors. Those three interact together, and the split of responsibilities is sometimes a little bit blurred and not very clear. The NMPA took a very clear shortcut, and Article 7 says those three, plus eventually as well a digital agency, if we have a digital agency on top of that, but Koen is going to tell us more about this. Those three, when this law passes, will have joint and several responsibility on every single aspect. So NMPA, if there's a problem, they are going to look for everybody and hold everybody accountable. And to do so, they will be able to leverage big data. It's already mentioned in Article 13, but there are details throughout this law, which has almost 200 articles, mind you, on the possibility of sharing data with tax offices, customs, vigilance, NMPA, etc. All this will be aggregated progressively and bringing in stronger sanctions, indeed. If you see non-compliance, if you see failure in terms of vigilance, sanctions are stronger in the new law compared to what's in force today. Increasing NMPA efficiency, because obviously if you put pressure on the companies and the industry, you want to put pressure on the regulator too, or else you are going to displease everybody. The regulatory agent will change name, and it's not going to be Jules Italian anymore, it's going to be Gene Netzer, and then the domestic responsible person, emphasis on responsible. So if you have a regulatory agent, this has consequences for you, and because your regulatory agent's responsibility will increase. My company is a regulatory agent for various products from overseas in China, and my responsibility will increase due to this. On the other hand, as I mentioned, Article 39, 46, 50, etc., give more stringent response deadlines to NMPA for the approval of a clinical program, for the approval of dossier, etc., for an official classification request if you need one, etc. And the NMPA, to meet those deadlines, is now much freer to operate as before. They can organize expert committees, they can bring in experts from the industry, from the clinic, etc., but not necessarily strictly on the let's say on an official capacity. It used to be a complex problem within the complex process within the NMPA to do so. It's not the case anymore. They can organize committees, so to match those deadlines, they are going to take, let's say, the skills and the expertise where it is, which means that if you are about to launch a product, if you have an expert with you, a Chinese expert with you, I would say in your pocket to some extent, because somebody who champions your product, well, chances are at some point this expert might be called by the NMPA during the review of your product, and in that case, you're good to go because your expert will sing your praises and explain your product better or at least as well as you would do to the regulator. So this freedom of organization re-emphasizes the need for you as an innovator to consider regulatory as just part of a holistic approach of the market, which includes sales distribution, but also mobilization of the clinic from very early on. Very quickly, most recent IVD measures, they all go towards simplifications. When you see 7 new guidelines, those are guidelines for IVD approval. Those 7 ones, you might be part of those, might not, but anyway, for reference, whenever the NMPA comes out with a new guideline, don't think that it's a new complexity. No, it's actually a clarification of something that was unclear before, mostly. So they have a bit of a backlog of guidelines to bring in. And the more guidelines come out, the better you're at when it comes to knowing exactly what you need to do to get registered. And 7 new IVD clinical exemptions. And it's funny because Karen mentioned multiple analytes as a target and a sector that would improve and would increase in the coming 5 years. Well, look at what is clinically exempt as of 1 week ago in China now, when you want to register them, immunoassay analyzers, biochemical, etc., those are multiple analytes products. And keep abreast with the clinical exemption catalog. It changes often, at least once a year. You might have a good surprise at any point. So, key takeaways to conclude for you guys. Innovate, because there are more unmet needs than you think. Karen outlined all this. I don't need to come back to this patient by expensive you, but as you can see from the regulatory, constant novelty is key. Don't be afraid to bring in your innovation. China needs it, China recognizes it, and you will make money out of it. Then register your products, because a market authorization becomes an asset. It's not something that you're going to be stuck with whatsoever. Even if, for instance, your distributor has difficulties promoting a new product of yours, you are still the market authorization holder. You could actually, not only transfer distribution, but even give the market authorization to somebody else who knows what they're going to do about it. And then you can enter into another model whereby you would get royalties out of your products, etc. In some cases, it's important, but anyway, if you have a market authorization in China, the moment this law passes, it becomes an asset. It's on your balance sheet. It values your company. And IVDR, as I said, convergence between IVDR and MDR and the definitions in force in China, being certified IVDR for the Europeans among you, facilitates regulatory process. And I'm sorry if you want to maintain and if you're stuck onto, let's say, keeping all your production out of China. Localization is going to be the name of the game. There is no way back and no way around it. So select your providers, ramp up your government relations, because whenever you need to localize, you will need a local government relations. But in those, if you manage those three, you will achieve sustained development and really play the game at par with the Chinese players, because there is nothing in China regulations and laws and practice that says made in China has to be made by Chinese companies. When it says made in China, it's made in China for China. There is a good equality of treatment between Western, or let's say foreign manufacturers in China and local manufacturers. And above all, you are no less responsible than your distributor or your regulatory agents. So supervise, increase your presence as well, or enlarge and broaden your team, because you will need to know. You can't, when this opacity, you can't say anymore, oh, this is my distributor's problem, or this is my regulatory agent's problem. No, you need to supervise. You may be held accountable jointly and severally as well. That's it for me today. Quick presentation in 2 words. VVR Medical, we are a consultancy present on the Chinese market since 1999 on virtually every sector. And since 2018 on the medical industry. I've been in China for 25 years, specialized in medical device diagnostics and drugs as well. I'm a permanent resident here, so you can always find me. My details here, and please come to CAIVD next year in Xiamen. First, it's a great conference. Second, you're going to meet Karen and Tiki and everyone here, and you're certainly going to meet me as well. So if you want to meet me, I will definitely be there at CAIVD. This is definitely an exhibition I would not miss. Thank you very much, and feel free to send your questions. I'm going to be staying through the Q&A session.
Super. Thank you very much, Irénée. I feel like I've had a big gust of wind, and it's going to take me a few minutes to digest all of the pieces, but very, very interesting. Thank you so much.